What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about how you can winterize your chicken coop and get them ready for winter. Alright, it's about that time near Thanksgiving where it's going to start getting colder, a lot faster. Days are almost at their shortest, and winter's coming and it's almost here. Today, it's not too bad of a day. It actually feels pretty good outside. It's in the low 70s or upper 60s, so we got a warm day out of this, which is good relief from last week when it was in the 30s all week. But yesterday it was warm too. So we had a little warm front come in. Chickens and ducks are enjoying it. Chickens laying eggs in there, so that's good. But I talked to you today about winterizing chicken coop and just getting them ready for winter. Alright, so as far as the chicken run goes, I don't have to do much with mine. My chickens have big open yard they can all roam around in. They have this little pen in here with this little hut that they like to go in when it's real cold. And I got their water set up right here. And grass only died a couple weeks ago, and it sure died off fast. We got some heavy freezes, and now it's back to warm again, but Oklahoma weather is kind of crazy. But my chickens have all this area, all this pen, and the ducks. And then they have all this area back here to run around in. So as far as their pen and their chicken run, I don't have to do much to it. Now where I live, it doesn't get, the winter's not that bad, but I do have to do a few things for the chickens, which I'll get to here in a few seconds. But our climate is pretty moderate. It doesn't get too cold in the winter. Usually the coldest it gets is a couple degrees below zero, and that's pretty common for that to be the lowest it gets to. Out of all the years we lived here, the coldest it's got, I think, is -10 or -15, around there. So it doesn't get too cold. If you had in the windshield, it's a little colder since we live on a hill and we get that airflow. Today we got no wind, so it feels great, but our climate's pretty moderate. But I know a lot of people have chickens up in the north, and getting them prepared is something you want to do so they can stay nice and warm. So here's my hen house, and it's pretty sealed up. You don't want a hen house that's sealed up too much, but it allows for some good airflow. And what's good about this hen house is it lets all the southern wind come in from the top over there and then drift back through there on out the other side. And that's great for having a lot of airflow in here in the summertime. But in the winter, it blocks off all the northern wind that's coming in from this way, and you still get a little bit of air in here, which is good because you always need airflow in your hen house, especially in the winter, since the chickens are more than likely gonna kind of generally stay in the hen house a little bit more, stay in here a little bit more in the cold, just so they can keep warm. And I just put down some fresh straw on the ground here, and I cleaned it up a little bit. I like to clean it about every week and just clean everything off the walls and off their perches. And then I usually do a deep clean every once a month or so. It doesn't need it too bad, but I put some fresh straw in here, raked out some old stuff, and filled their nests up, and they're occupying themselves over there, fixing their nests up. But having a good hen house is good for that. And I know a lot of people put boards up around their hen house in the winter to keep it warmer, and you can do that, but just as long as you keep some airflow, since chickens are going to be in here and they don't want it to be just tight air in here. But you want to have a little warm area for them to stay in. And in the summertime, I usually put hay in here, or straw, whatever you want to call it, once a week. But in the winter, I try to do it twice a week or more, because they're in here more and they like to bundle up in the hay. And usually what I can do is just put a pile in the middle, and they'll have fun just spreading out themselves, and they kind of make it look better than I do. But got some eggs in here. It's a warm day, so they're not all in here, but a few weeks ago it got down to in the teens and had hen-house filled up. It was icing outside, so they want a warm place to stay. And you could put a heater in here. I really wouldn't recommend any sort of heat lamp or anything like that, because that's a huge fire danger. It already is in like a brooder, but if you were to get a heater, you can get one of them domes that don't have a heat lamp to bust, cause fires or anything. I never need it because usually chickens are a lot better in the cold than they are going to be in the hot. And it gets up above 100 a few days a year where I live, and chickens handle it better than they do in the cold. So they're going to enjoy the colder weather more than they are the extreme heat. And that goes for their egg production too. Usually they don't lay as many eggs when it's really hot, vice when it's really cold. Even though they do lay a lot less eggs in the wintertime, but I think it can go for most breeds that they like the cooler weather more than the extreme heat. And I got some of them fluffy birds, and they sure don't mind the winter. So for the hen house, I would just make sure it's cleaner. You clean it more often since they're going to be in here more, just to escape the cooler weather, and make sure they have fresh straw, and they'll have a good time. As far as the chickens' waters goes, these are generally in the shade most of the day, just so they stay cooler in the summer. And then I have another set of 3 pools in their other pen that's in the sun the most of the day, and those are the ones that I let the ducks in the most. And these have a cover on 2 of them. One of them has a hole, and I gotta clean these. I cleaned these 2 days ago, and it just goes to show how fast the ducks ruin water. I just have a small group of ducks in with all my 80 somewhat chickens, and they sure make an impact on it. But water heaters, you can get the little ones, and I tried a little fish tank heater, and you just run a cord out here, put a little fish tank heater in there, and it'll keep a little circle unmelted in the extreme cold. But most of the time I just break the ice and don't really worry about it. And the ducks are good about that too, because they kind of drill on the ice for the chickens, and I'm sure the chickens appreciate that. But water's not too big of an issue for me, but something you focus on. Pigs are enjoying the warmer day. You got the other pig roaming out around and about the barns. There's Murphy. Talk about feed here for a second. During the summertime, I usually feed the chickens straight chicken feed grain. I use this brand, and it works well for me. I've been using it for almost 2 years now, and that's a good feed for them. It combines all their calcium needs and everything. I still mix in all their grit and extra oyster shells in there, but I changed their feed up, and I just did this today. What I like to do in fall, and just did this morning, I do a 4-to-1 ratio with 4 parts of the grain and 1 part of scratch grains, and then I also mix the whole corn in there with it, with the scratch grains, and that's a good ratio for their feed. And what it does is it keeps them warmer in the winter overnight. The corn and the extra grains is gonna supplement the pecking and stuff that they're not going to be able to do during the winter when everything's dead. So that's good for them. I'd always recommend changing their feed to give them a higher fat and protein diet during the winter, just so they can get the extra nutrients that they're not getting from their pen or the grass you're giving them. So scratch grains and corn helps them stay warm too. And I feed these guys 8 quarts twice a day. I up it, then 6 quarts twice a day that I give them in the summertime. So I up their diet in terms of fat and protein in there, and I give them more feed during the winter too. So I'm going to start this and continue it till probably a week or 2 before spring. Then as soon as things start sprouting again, change their feed back to normal. And they seem like they like it more too. I'll mix the scratch grains in there in their normal feed a few times a year too, since they just like it, but works good for them. They're chowing down on it. Thanks so much for watching the video, guys. Make sure to share the videos with your friends, and I'll see you next time.